Nothing has been called many things ever since the tech firm by ex-Phone Plus man Carl Pei made its debut a couple years back. You've got some dismissing it as nothing more than a hype, some doubting their quality and hardware, while others have openly stated just how much they love it. Well, those people aren't me. At least not yet, because I've yet to personally and extensively use a product by Nothing. Well, that is, until now. The Nothing Phone 2 is of course one of the major new smartphones around, thanks in large part to its aggressive guerrilla marketing campaign. But if you were to just look past that for a moment, or maybe you've just been living under the proverbial rock, what you actually have here is a very well-designed smartphone. Now, I've never shied away from stating how much I like the industrial flat sides that Apple brought back with the iPhone 12 lineup. And when the Nothing Phone 1 came about with a very similar design, I also thought it looked nice. With the Nothing Phone 2, however, they've made a subtle change that, while I doubted at first, I now think made it just so much better. On the back of the Nothing Phone 2, the glass now has curves on the edges, tapering off as it meets the aluminum sides. This gives it a very comfortable and premium feel in the hand, yet keeping that same industrial design language. Turn it around and the story is the same. The display is now a 6.7-inch OLED display that brings it to roughly the same size as an iPhone 14 Pro Max or an iPhone 14 Plus. With an improved 1:120Hz refresh rate thanks to the LTPO backplane and a higher peak brightness, the display is on par with its rivals in the Android scene, and watching content on it feels great. But to me at least, the one thing that really makes it stand out though is its uniform bezels all around the edge. Yes, it's not the thinnest bezels out there, but there's something about that uniformity that makes it very appealing to use and, more importantly, very appealing to look at. And its dual stereo speakers are alright, but it still lags behind a tiny bit behind the likes of the RG phone and the iPhone. Of course, I can't talk about the Nothing Phone 2 without talking about the elephant in the room. That Glyph Interface LEDs on the back. While at first glance it's not much different from the Phone 1, it is different, with more LED zones on the back now, as well as a number of new features, such as a Glyph composer for you to customize your own annoyingly staccato ringtones and have it match the lights on the back, as well as have it sync up to your Uber Eats order so that you know how near your delivery rider is. Except we don't have Uber Eats here, so if I'm going to be honest, the novelty factor of the Glyph interface lights kinda wore out after like the first day. I like it for some of its more practical use cases, such as being able to see your charging percentage or being able to more obviously tell when you have a message coming in when your phone's in your periphery vision. But I don't think I'll be dropping a mixtape using the Glyph composer on SoundCloud anytime soon. It's a great conversation starter, sure, but it still feels like a gimmick. In fact, perhaps the strongest part of the Nothing Phone 2 to me is its UI. I've always been a huge proponent of the stock Android experience, especially the Google Pixel's Material You theming all over it. While the NothingOS 2.0 is definitely not a stock Android experience, it is keeping the best parts about it while also adding a unique minimalist spin to things. Unlike the likes of One UI or ColorOS, using the Phone 2 doesn't feel cluttered and all over the place. Animations in particular are very nice to the eye. And the option to make everything monochrome has a special place in my heart, because in college, I was the kid with the fully custom Android theme on his smartphone with like 5 different apps for handling things like the lock screen, wallpaper, app icons, and so forth. And one of the things I would do was to make everything monochrome. Under the hood, meanwhile, is the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1. And while it's not the latest and greatest mobile processor in the Android scene, day-to-day performance is more than good enough. And combined with the slick feeling NothingOS 2.0, you'll likely never feel it being sluggish, unless you spend the day doing nothing but running benchmarks. Battery life is also decent, and I was able to get it to last the full day no issue, with about a third of the battery left in the tank. No charging brick in the box though, so that's something you'll want to take note of. Alas, NothingOS 2.0 is not perfect either. I've experienced a couple of bugs already, such as the device refusing to unlock. I kept keying in the password and the phone 2 would just unlock and immediately lock itself again, with the only solution being to restart the device altogether. And speaking of restarting, the phone 2 also seemed to really like rebooting itself randomly. Like, I could pull it out of my pocket and suddenly I see that it wants me to key in my password instead of letting me use the fingerprint sensor, because it rebooted, and a quick search online shows that I'm not the only one having this issue too. On the bright side, NothingOS 2.0 has a great foundation to build upon on, and so with a couple of software tweaks and updates, I think they should be able to sort it out. And you should be able to expect updates on the phone 2 too, as they've already guaranteed at least 3 years of Android OS upgrades, along with 4 years of security patches that will come at least every 2 months. As for its cameras, the Nothing Phone 2 rocks a dual 50MP rear camera setup and a 32MP selfie camera up front. Overall, I quite liked it actually, with the main camera in particular doing a decent enough job at taking snaps on the go, no issue. I don't think it's the best camera on a smartphone out there, but for posting on social media or just to have it for your own memory, the photos from it are perfectly fine. The ultra-wide shooter, on the other hand, is a little inconsistent, with images struggling to be sharp at times, leading to noisy photos, especially in low-light conditions. And if you're coming from a smartphone that has a third telephoto shooter on the back, you'll find the phone 2 a little less versatile, as it lacks that telephoto shooter. This means that while there is a 2x option when taking a photo, it is just a digital zoom. Finally, we can now come to its price. Starting at 2,999 ringgit for the one with the 256 gigs of storage, the Nothing Phone 2 actually looks like a pretty decent deal, as you're getting a smartphone with good build quality, guaranteed software support, solid cameras, and if it matters, the Glyph interface on the back. In fact, looking at the other new Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 devices on the market, you have the Poco F5 Pro that is much cheaper but with arguably worse cameras and build quality, as well as the Oppo Reno 10 Pro Plus that does have better cameras on paper but is more expensive. Both of those phones also don't have as long of a guaranteed software support policy as the Nothing Phone 2. But if you take a look at its flagship rivals, things start to look a bit different. The Samsung Galaxy S23, for example, may have a retail price of 3,899 ringgit, but oftentimes you'll be able to find it on sale at less than 3,000. Then there's also the OnePlus 11, which starts at 3,299 too. These both are outright flagships with Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 processors, up to 5 years of software support, and slightly more versatile camera setups too. And yeah, that's been our take on the Nothing Phone 2. Are you planning on getting this unique looking device for yourself, or are you still on the fence about it? Let us know what you think about the Phone 2 in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe for more from us here at Soya Chin Chow. This has been Raymond, signing out.